Hi everybody and welcome to SA Rugby Magazine. I'm Kevin Ferguson. I got Mark Keohane and Zelim Nel. Guys, for those watching and commenting and seeing everything on the All Blacks, they must think that this is like that series on Netflix right now, Stranger Things, where they're living in this upside down world. You know, it's hard to digest the things that I'm hearing from Foster, specifically from Foster. You know, I have no love lost. He shouldn't be the coach. Again, each week he shows me why he shouldn't be the coach. So full of excuses. And yeah, I think he said that this was the best game they played. What in fuck's name is he talking about?
No, I've got no idea. And to be honest, and I think Mark will attest to this as well, we've seen some South African teams that have struggled in the past, and the rhetoric that comes out of those camps is identical to what we're hearing from Foster at the moment.
Yeah, so we've been there. We know,
I mean, we can tell. Telltale signs are there.
So to look at it logically, they've played the best game they have, and they've got 5 changes for them in the front, in the back, in the forward.
And they had 9 the week before, right?
Yeah. So
Correct, yeah.
I don't know. I feel sorry for the New Zealanders. I mean, not that sorry because we've gone through this more times than you can count, but must be a level of frustration in New Zealand because rugby is a religion.
Look, Kev, I don't feel sorry for any New Zealand supporter because I can't ever recall a New Zealand supporter feeling sorry for us when we lost 8 in a row to the All Blacks. When McCaw's team was smashing us, they just kept on saying, we're good, we're good, we're good. And we need to also just kind of back that belief and say we've been together for 5 years. We are the current World Cup champions. We're playing in front of 62,000 at Ellis Park on the back of a 26-10 win against a side that is nowhere. We should go into this match expecting to win comfortably and just do the basics, play well, and there should be double digits in it again. Because we've been saying this since last year. This is not Richie McCaw and Dan Carter, Kieran Reid that are in, and Tana Umanga and Joan Alame. That's not these teams. This is a team that's got 2 Centurions that are struggling with their game, Aaron Smith and Sam Whitelock. They've got a lot of youngsters, and the question mark is, are they good enough to play Test rugby? They've got a backline that hasn't fired, and they've got a pack that just at the moment is proving incapable of beating the likes of France, Ireland, South Africa. Would definitely struggle against England if they played them at the moment, and I reckon would struggle against Wales without a doubt. You know,
but bring them on. I mean, that's not cocky. I think we've got a chance of ever beating them. This is the year. I think even Italy would be fancy.
I think Italy put in a request to World Rugby for 3 Test series. First time ever. But if you go back to that Italian match last year, we're just talking about that, and it was a bun fight for 50 minutes. New Zealand was struggling. And then they had that blitz, 3 tries in 5 minutes, and that's how New Zealand plays because the game got a bit loose. But that Italian pack was sorting them out. They couldn't get any parity, and Dan Cole still said afterwards it was playing like schoolboys, playing with schoolboys, ill discipline. When I looked at that first test and you saw Akira Ione go into contact and get bounced, he wasn't going back into contact. He was hovering. He became a ruck inspector. So Shannon Frizzell comes on. You know, clumsy loss. He scored a try, but clumsy lost 10 minutes. We know that he adds a physicality, discipline not great. And that All Black side, generally their discipline's not great. That's that we saw from my facts in New Zealand, that since 2012, New Zealand's been yellow carded or red carded twice as many times as their opponents. And in every second game, they lose a player to a card. And they should have lost Beauden Barrett to a card. There was an out-and-out cynical play on an intercept with one hand. So I don't agree with that it goes to a card, but to be consistent, they should have lost another player there. They've made a lot of South Africa's aerial game and they nearly killed someone, in this case Beauden Barrett. Forget that the guy who collided into him is the one who got concussed, and he's now out for 4 weeks, Curtly Orense. So there's been a lot of in the media play about South Africa playing, you know, on the edge, off the ball, and it's just absolute nonsense. And the one thing is,
well, we copped the criticism after we won the World Cup about the forward play and with banning the sort of rules that give South Africa's bomb squad an advantage. You know, it's New Zealand, and I've said it, Mark, are not good enough.
They're not good enough at the moment, and there's no crime in losing to a side if you're not good enough. But the reaction to almost this disbelieving reaction, especially in South Africa, if you beat them 26-10 last week, can't do it again. Why not? when they lost that second test against Ireland, Johnny Sexton said, "It's great. We got another one next week, and then it's history." And I was like, "Oh, aren't they just happy with that one?" They couldn't believe they'd lost that first one because they were very clumsy in their execution. And New Zealand, they got a bit of space, and they can always do that, score 2 or 3 quick tries. But that third test, if New Zealand couldn't come out and play with the desperation to not lose for the first time in their history, it's because they're not good enough. They didn't lose on purpose. They're not losing here on purpose. They didn't go to Paris and lose because they want to piss people off. They're just not good enough at the moment. And we went through that frustration when Alistair Coetzee was the coach. We went through it in Heineke's last kind of year where...
All with ridiculous excuses.
With Rudolf Stroili, I was there when we went through that kind of thing. I should listen to that same rhetoric afterwards. We're going back to the drawing board. We're one game away. But the same players will go out and get knocked over week after week. So when I looked at the Bok 23 announced, and I looked at the All Black 23 announced, the Twitter note that I put out was, look at the two benches and make up your mind. Because when I see what's coming off their bench, and I see what's coming off ours, and that's where the test always gets decided in the last 30 minutes at altitude, at Ellis Park. Our bench, those 6 forwards are just, those 6 forwards would handle the All Black pack of 8 with 2 down. And that's what's coming off our bench. And on that basis, I just think it should be a clinical performance, and the Boks should comfortably win. And I have more kind of trepidation of what they're going to do in Australia because we've always struggled to go there and win test matches. So we played 2 there. That to me is going to be a challenge of how's this team matured and kind of what's their rugby intellect like to play in a very different kind of opponent. But if this wasn't the black jersey, it was another country's jersey that's ranked 6 to 10. We'd be talking about 30 points on Saturday. There's still 10 points they get because of the colour of that black jersey, and I still think it'll be double digits.
I say 5, but, you know, New Zealand almost are 6th. You know, it's a strange world, and I get it from some supporters. You know, people say that we need a strong New Zealand. I get the sentiment. I don't believe it. You know, it's everything has a cycle. And this is what we're seeing. We're seeing a cycle of All Blacks that just aren't good enough. I think Sam Cane looks lost and afraid out on the field. He shouldn't be the captain. I just see a coach that is making... they lose by 14, 16 points, and he says this is the best game they played all year. What parallel universe is this guy living in? I mean, whatever happened to people taking responsibility? 20 years ago, you'd have coaches resign out of embarrassment. But these guys, no way. They're like barnacles on a boat. They're never resigning.
But I think, and again, I put this down to when we were in isolation and we put the All Blacks on a pedestal. And because there's always been such a strong All Black support base in this country, is the Boks have won by 26-10. And all the talk this week has been, when are we going to see the real All Blacks, as opposed to, actually, we have a pretty good Springbok side at the moment, who are world champions.
Arguably played their best game since the World Cup.
Without a doubt, eh? And I mean, if you look at the Bok setup, Zels, and last week you spoke and you said, when Kev asked you, what do you want to see? And you said, I want to see a proper performance. Forget what the score is going to be. How proper was that performance?
No, well, exactly. I mean, everything we asked for was delivered. We controlled every facet of the game. And just the depth of talent that we have in this country and that's currently in the Bok squad was on absolute display there. We've got the best centres in the world. Malcolm Marx easily in the debate for the best hooker in the world. The guy's been playing off the bench, just walks in and dominates the whole game, takes over. Lurt's playing his best rugby. Evans a centurion. It's just fantastic to see. So for me, we're in uncharted territory in the sense that teams don't just win back-to-back World Cups. That's the mission for this team to be rated as the best Bok team ever, is to go and do this again now. And part of that evolution, I think, is in switching over from historically being cagey about saying we are the best and we're going to play like the best and we're going to beat what's before us, and actually start to embrace that status as world champions and as the most dominant team in the world. And I think that's where we are this week. We spoke earlier about the All Blacks' history and how they won't be like this forever. They will eventually turn back around. And the Boks have to take advantage of that this week.
Yeah, and if you look at the Bok psyche, and especially if you look at, say, the more conservative Boks, be it English-speaking or Afrikaans-speaking, they come out of households where you don't boast. You can't say we're going to win. That's arrogance. But it's confidence, because to say we're confident of winning because we feel we're a better team and we will back that up with a performance is the mentality that I think we saw in Nelspruit.
Yeah.
And it's the mentality we saw in that World Cup final, where the world had just dismissed South Africa. It was a joke. England were magnificent in dismantling the All Blacks, and we had that arm wrestle against Wales, which people thought was a turgid affair, but it really was a World Cup final in the way those two teams went at each other. So when I look at Pieter-Steph du Toit, if you can replace him and Malcolm Marx within 50 minutes of a test match, and then you see who's coming on and the different caliber of play in terms of what the Kwagga Smith, what he injects. When you've got a Dwayne Vermeulen starting this week, and if he empties the tank after 35 minutes, you've got potentially one of the players of the match, Jasper Wiese, coming on. So if you've got a Damian Willemse coming off, you've got a Willie Leroux going on. You've got a Malcolm Marx coming on again. And then that front row of Kitsy, Marx, and Vincent Koch, who was deemed in the Premiership to be the best tight end. Those three scrumming as a unit for the last 40 at altitude. Pity those poor buggers from the All Blacks or any team who has to come on. I said to Zals when we saw the team announcement, I think the happiest blokes in town are the 7 who missed out from the All Blacks. Thinking they just have to do the bus trip. That's about it.
I mean, you've got to feel like that bomb squad would beat the All Blacks starting 8.
No, without a doubt. I mean it's so
close.
talented. Eh?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's there's depth. We're spoiled for riches when it comes to selection and depth. I mean, it's just one of those occasions in the cycle of rugby life that has the box with a great director of rugby. You've got talent, so much talent, and just seeing the changing of the guard for a few years or a couple of years. You know, the questions I know come out of this: are we peaking too soon? That'll be the next question after.
Oh no, France peaked last year, then Ireland peaked. If we're peaking, you know, you just need in that World Cup, we need basically 2 games, and that's it's the one that decides whether we come first or second, and that's against Ireland, and then it's going to be France or New Zealand. You win that, you win the World Cup.
But we've actually given the reasons for why we haven't peaked and won't peak is because the competition for places in the squad is so massive. There is no space for complacency. How can you be complacent if you bongi with Malcolm Marx breathing down your neck and Joseph Dweber's next in line? It's just too much competition.
What they've also done brilliantly, and we looked at that All Black side 2011 to 2015. They didn't kick Kevin Mialama into touch, or a couple of the oldies. They brought 2 kids in and said, okay, you're going to get 20 minutes here, 10 minutes here. Are you prepared to do that? Like they did with Skulk Brits. But this one is for 2019, but this has been sustained. So they brought in a Dion Fourie, coach kind of player. They've said to Willie Leroux, we're not chucking you out yet. Are you prepared to work with Damien? Prepared to work with some of the youngsters? It's rejuvenated him.
Spot on.
He's like saying to them, hang on a second, I'm still going to fight for this position. But what they've shown a Dwayne Vermeulen and a Willie Leroux, 2 of the stalwarts of the last 8 years, is if you don't play well, we can't take you. We now finally have a substitute for you, and they've been playing for 18 months at test level, and they've won against some of the bigger teams. So I'll always see Dwayne going, and I'll see Willie going next year. But they're going to very different guys. And that's the kind of evolution and revolving door you want in a great team, where you look again and the 8 or the 15 have changed, you don't even realize it. What's happened to the New Zealand side is very similar for me to what happened to the Australian cricket side. That side of McCaw and Carter, and Sonny Bill Williams, Ma Nanu, Conrad Smith, Kieran Reid, Whitelock, Retallick, you name them, Bowden Barrett, just an outstanding bunch of rugby players, the best probably the world has ever seen, and certainly in the professional era. And then boom, they effectively all went at the same time. And so there was a second tier that went and played overseas. So this is what's beyond them. They haven't been good at under 20 level for a long time. They only play against Australia in terms of schools. If you look at the way they play Super Rugby in the NPC, they're not prepared to play Test Rugby. And finally, South Africa's got their game right. France, under Gaultier and Sean Edwards,
What do you mean by that,
right.
Mark, when you say they're not prepared to play Test Rugby?
The type of player they're producing is a wonderful athlete.
Expressive.
Expressive. I mean, the wonderful Hamish Bedell, who, I hope I pronounced that right, who wrote that South Africa in the forwards has Malcolm Marx, New Zealand has 8 players who are told to express themselves with ball in hand, good haircuts, nice boots, nice tattoos. So if you look at a Super Rugby game, you look at a Bledisloe Cup game, it's fantastic to watch. The skill level is there, it's offloading the tackle, there's not a hell of a lot of confrontation. But England is a good side. France finally getting it right. Ireland have come to the fore, and Wales showed on this tour in terms of when they do get their selections right. They are hardened guys who play percentages. They know that scrum is important, the line-out's important, and defence is important. New Zealand, the scrum is seen as a restart. They want to play everything at pace. I mean, they were talking about expressive rugby in that first 40 against us. It was some of the most headless chicken panic rugby I've seen. Because they needed a 10 to say, I'm going to just chip that ball behind that Russian defence. I'm going to play for territory, and I'm actually going to not play my game against these guys. And let's see them play back. Because South Africa doesn't want to play from 70 metres. We want to play from 20.
Yeah.
And they're always going to provide 14 points with razzle and dazzle. But currently, they don't have those forwards who can hang with us for 80 minutes.
And I think, Mark, part of that is because maybe they get too much credit for being innovators. I mean, if you think back to 2000 and, was it 9, 10, 11, when they spotted what we were doing in the kicking game and started to adapt to that. You saw Corey Jane come into the mix. They took that sort of leaf out of our book and radically altered how they approached the game in terms of kicking. And I think those losses against Ireland in recent years has actually hurt New Zealand in the sense that they became emulators of Irish rugby, where your props are technical and can pass the ball and can link. In a way, the expectation or the belief, the popular consensus is that Ireland are trying to emulate the All Blacks. But I think that role has reversed in recent years, and I think the All Blacks are now paying the price for trying to be maybe a little bit too technical and not tough.
Well, the one thing is, like, you never saw an All Black go back in a collision, or if you did, you know you were going back in the next one. And that scrum, when you had a Woodcock on the loose head and you had Owen Franks on the tight at 108 tests, it didn't really move much, and then they dominated. So you got a Stephen Kitsoff saying, I was awed by Owen Franks. I learnt my rugby playing against him. He's 34. He's playing in the NPC for Canterbury this week. 34. Oosterrand went to a World Cup and won it at 35. This guy hasn't been in the All Black mix since 2018 because he doesn't fit the mould of their play. What play? They were going to redefine the way the game was played. That's what Steve Hansen and Foster said before the 2019 World Cup. Played at a pace that the world had never seen. They forgot the fundamentals of the game are still a scrum, a line out, and a set piece. And that's when I say about what the type of player they're producing. In this column, this bloke wrote, he said Frans Malherbe would never see a Super Rugby team over there. He doubts Trevor Nyankani would ever get a game. He doesn't even know if the likes of Peter Steff, De Toy, Lukanya and Diolandi would get a game because of the way they play. They would never pick our winners because they're not these big brutes. And he went on and on. He said, but we prepare test match rugby players. And then I hate when I read this, but when are we going to play? I thought we played brilliantly. We played such emphatic, clever percentage winning rugby. Exactly. And when we had the ball, we looked dangerous. So when I read the international reports and I hear the guys on the breakdown saying, well, they didn't play much, but they got the win. We played particularly well. And if you can take the ball and win 60 meters with a magnificent kick, turn the ball over and go, that's far more dangerous than regressing 40 meters and throwing 23 passes at the same time.
Spot on.
It's like, how's that intelligent? How's that entertaining? You know, so New Zealand's game's based on, can they get a mismatch? Caleb Clark on Kitsy, he slips that tackle, they're away. That's what they did against Ireland. They got 20 points in 10 minutes. But Ireland also scored 4 and should have scored another 4 in that test. So when the games have been kind of, the Irish have played well, South Africa's played well, France has played well, New Zealand has sucked it up because they can't rely on that individual brilliance anymore. 21 points is not good enough to win. They need to be getting 35, and they're not a good enough side to get that.
Well, you know, it just goes to, you know, they've signed a massive deal with a company.
Silver Lakes, yeah.
Silver Lakes. And they're entering probably their worst period ever. When have you watched a Kiwi game where they've been hopelessly out of it? There wasn't even one moment in that game that I felt, here they come. You know, they just don't have it.
They looked as starstruck as they did in that first half in the 22-3, the third test against Ireland. And that to me is when they spoke about desperation. Look, we dropped that second test to Ireland, we'll come out here and we'll make good. In the third test.
That's 13 points then they scored in 2 tests.
And then, you know, it was like they had that little flurry of comeback, but Ireland still had the belief to calm the game down and actually go and kind of restore order in terms of the quality of the two teams. But the All Blacks didn't go out there not to express themselves, not to play, not to be desperate. They just weren't allowed to. So they were just so suffocated by this python that a good Springbok team is, with that atmosphere, playing at the low felt, they were just a scrambling team. And we spoke ad nauseum about it last week to say it's like the glory days of the wonderful Hurricanes and Blues who would come here and get beaten 42-28, but score 4 of the greatest tries you've seen. But their pack would be disintegrated by the end of 80 minutes at the Highveld. And I think this weekend will be a higher scoring game because Ellis Park tends to do that. But I just see that last 20 minutes favouring a Bok team so emphatically.
Well, that's the thing. When you look, what was the score? 14 at halftime for
10-3, yeah.
10-3. So you had 7 points in it. You just knew it wasn't going to get better for New Zealand after the half, and they really, literally need to be up by 5 to 10 points to not lose the game in the second half. So New Zealand have to play out their bootstraps, in my opinion, in the next game to keep it close.
Look, I go back to that the Chiefs Bulls in the final. Chiefs went on this incredible run and got to the final at Loftus. Chiefs were up 10-0 within 2 minutes. They lost 61-17. Jake's 2004 Springboks were down 13-0 against Graham Henry's All Blacks. 2004, they won 40-26. Maurice Joubert scored 3 tries. You look at a lot of those semi-finals that the good Lion sides played against the Hurricanes, the Bulls against the Crusaders, and that Crusader side included McCaw and Carter. They all got off to very quick starts at the Highveld. Quick tries, like 14 points up. And then the game settled and the altitude kicked in and that engine just rumbled on. So it wouldn't surprise me to see them go ahead early and us then settle. But I just see the Boks.
But we're not going to change it, the way we approach the game.
Not at all, and we shouldn't. And I remember last week I said I think they'll win by 8, but they're good enough to win by 18. This week I'm saying they will win by 18.
And I'm saying the opposite.
I guess they'll win by 8. But as long as they win, and then we can watch some nice Bledisloe Cup rugby in the next fortnight.
Let's get into it. Where are you going, Z?
I'm definitely going South Africa, and I'm going South Africa by 14.
Well, okay, nice.
Conservative.
You ever thought we'd say that?
Yeah, so whoever thought we'd be disappointed with 16 points, but differential. So I'm going 38-20 is the kind of scoreline I'm looking at. 18 points to the Springboks differential. High scoring game. I think our pack will just really get on fire, and then we'll show the world we can score a few tries as well.
Yeah, I just have a gut feeling, it's that this will be the best game the All Blacks have played in 2 years and lose by 8.
What's your score? What's your scoreline there?
I don't think it's going to be a high-scoring game. I don't think South Africa play that way, and they're not going to change or alter their game plan. They just won by 16. So I would say something like 25-17.
Okay.
For the Boks.
All right, and are you going to run a competition again this week?
We are, yeah. We're going to run a competition across. We had 10,000 entrants last week, and no one won.
10,000 entrants to win R1,000 if you pick the correct score, and if there were 5,000 of you that got that, you would have all got your R1,000. This was a very relieved man on Saturday night, by the way. Look, thank God I don't have to pay that up. But yeah, SA Rugby on the money, man. Our Facebook page, SA Rugby Facebook page, and Daddy's Deals as well. Go there and same again this week, eh?
Yep.
R1,000 for the correct score. But if you pick the same scores as us, you've got to actually split the money with us.
It should be a cracker for South Africa, and good luck to both teams. Let's see another.
And may the green team win.
May the green team. Thanks, guys.